To learn means to be in a state of play, to live a life of curiosity, a life of inspiring one another, a life of connecting with each other, and a life of real conversations. Welcome to Natural Learning. Today, when we think of the words education, learning, and children, we immediately seem to associate that with schooling. So in other words, we think of education as something done to children by adults. And as the education researcher Peter Gray puts it, and there's a quote from him, "Today, in the minds of most people, the onus for education lies with adults, who have the responsibility to make children acquire certain aspects of the culture, whether or not the children want to acquire them. But throughout human history, the real onus for education has always lain with children themselves, and it still does today. Just as children come into the world with instinctive drives to eat and drink what they must to survive, they come into the world with instinctive drives to educate themselves, to learn what they must, to become effective members of the culture around them and thereby to survive. Those instinctive drives, broadly construed, are curiosity, playfulness, and sociability." So, end quote. Today I want to focus on the curiosity part of the three drives mentioned there at the end. In later episodes, I'll go into playfulness as well as the social drives that include co-inspiration, connection, and conversation. So, in the first video of this series on natural learning, I introduced the theory that those animals whose way of life depends least on rigid instincts and most on learning are also the most playful. And also, as mammals, our learning is motivated in large part by our drive to explore. Even infants, within hours of being born, look longer at novel objects than those that they have already seen. And babies also look much longer at events that defy the laws of physics than at those that actually abide by the laws of physics. So, for example, given a choice between watching objects that fall up or down after being pushed off a shelf, babies actually, as young as 3 months old, prefer watching objects that fall upwards. So the drive to explore and understand novelty is built into the human species. The interesting thing to note about all of this is the converse is also true. We lose interest in things when we think that we have learnt all there is to know about them. The research psychologist Laura Schultz and her colleagues have performed numerous experiments regarding children's drive for exploration. In one experiment, the researchers presented 4-year-olds with a box that had 2 levers. So one lever made a toy duck pop up, and the other lever made a puppet pop up. The box was demonstrated to children in one of 2 ways. So in the first demonstration, each lever was pressed separately, and then both levers were pressed simultaneously in the second demonstration. So after the demonstrations, the children were left to play with the box on their own. And the interesting thing was that the result was that the children who had seen both levers pressed simultaneously spent a lot more time playing with the box. So why is that? Well, it seems that they were curious to see how the box really worked and what each lever did separately. The children were not so interested in just repeating already known effects. In another experiment, 4 and 5-year-olds were allowed to explore a toy that could produce 4 different effects when it was acted upon in different ways. So it squeaked when one tube was pulled out from inside another. It lit up when a small button hidden inside one of the ends of the tube was pressed. It produced musical notes when certain parts of a small yellow pad were pressed, and it produced the reverse image of the child's face when the child looked into one of the tubes. So those are 4 things that it did. The experiment was then conducted with 3 different conditions. So the teaching condition, the experimenter play condition, and the control condition. So in the teaching condition, the experimenter deliberately showed and explained to the child how to produce one of the effects, that is, the squeak. In the experimenter play condition, the experimenters squeaked the toy in front of the child, but they did so as if for their own enjoyment, rather than in a teaching mode. And then in the third condition, the control condition, the experimenter did nothing with the toy before giving it to the child. The children in the control condition and in the experimenter play conditions subsequently spent much more time exploring the toy, and they discovered how to produce more of the other effects than did the children who were just in the teaching condition. Apparently, it seems that children in the teaching conditions tended to conclude that the only thing that the toy could do was squeak, because that was all that the experimenter had shown them that it could do. Those in the non-teaching conditions had no reason to believe that the experimenter had shown them all there was to know about the toy, so they were more curious and they explored it more fully to discover its possibilities. And that's quite fascinating, because it shows us that teaching can be a real inhibitor to curiosity. Once somebody teaches us a way of doing something, we assume that that is the only way to do that thing. And this is actually good news, because it means that we can let go of this idea that we must make someone learn and all the frustrations that go along with that approach. So don't be so quick to teach your children. A far better approach is the approach taken by the second and third experiment conditions. Be playful in front of your children. Let them see you enjoy those things that you value, and then invite them to join in or try it too. Inspire them towards the things you value, don't teach them. Allow their curiosity drive to kick in and propel them to learn. Find things that you are both curious about that you can explore together. And now for this last bit, I'd just like to turn to a more sobering thought as well. Earlier I said that we lose interest in things when we think that we have learnt all there is to know about them. We no longer have the same drive to explore further. So this unfortunately also applies to the people within our lives. We too quickly assume that because we have spent so much time with someone that we have learnt all there is to know about that person, and so we stop exploring. Ask yourself this question: has my curiosity towards my child waned because I have become so used to them that I've assumed that I now know everything that there is to know? But let me encourage you with this final thought. Take some time to truly become curious about your child and allow yourself to discover new things that you hadn't noticed before. Ask new questions. As I mentioned yesterday, ask them about the games that they play. Ask them about their desires, their friendships, their highs, their lows. Be curious, and you may just find more to the people you live with every day than you thought possible. Hey, thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a like or a share as well. And if you'd like to talk to me personally more about natural learning, message me through Facebook, or just hop onto my website, frankeducation.nz. Fantastic. Alright, thanks. Bye.